So I want to start with before the feeds went down before the eviction yesterday, you had sort of told Vince, if I'm up on the block after that blockbuster, I'm gone. But obviously, in the sort of in-between period before the votes happened, there was a lot of, chaotic chatter with you, with a lot of the other house guests. So what did you think your chances were of staying in that period of time? And did that at all fuel this eviction speech you put out?
Yeah, I think it was probably pretty 40-60. Like I think 60% chance I go home, 40% I stay. And from my perspective, I didn't realize that, people like Riley were, going to get rid of me. I like to think that, I think I pretty much convinced Ashley. I'm not exactly sure how she voted, but if she didn't vote to keep me, she was at least considering it heavily, which is, somebody that was obviously one of Amy's closer allies. And so I think I had pretty close to the numbers. But obviously, I think a couple people flipped last second. I think there were a couple people that were kind of deceiving me a little bit, and so I obviously didn't have the numbers. I was too short, two votes that flopped short of a tiebreaker, and I know I would have the tiebreaker with Vinny.
Well, Ashley did vote to evict you, just to clarify
Okay, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Well, let's rewind to the beginning of this tumultuous 10-day period for you, because I'm sure you did not expect a spotlight to be shown on you on that very first night when, you are accused of being the accomplice. Riley said it's like, I saw he was red in the face and he was looking around. What was your reaction to that?
I mean, honestly, I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know. I feel like I try to have fun in it every moment, and I went in the house, and people are talking about this accomplice, and I knew that I knew I wasn't, and so when people like, I think Ashley at one point had asked me, are you the accomplice? I was kind of joking, like, oh, maybe, and I obviously if I'm the accomplice, I'm not going to say that. I would lie, and so I kind of didn't think people would take it seriously, but then they started spreading it around, like he literally said he was the accomplice, and so that wasn't probably not my best move, and I was like, wow, I really got to like watch what I say with the jokes because it might put me in hot water. And so I did get a couple votes. They didn't fully accuse, like I wasn't the one to that was honestly I kind of wish I was the one that had all the votes because then they would have known it wasn't me.
Hmm.
But I think it blew over pretty fast. I think people at this point don't think there's an accomplice, even though now we know it's Amy, which kind of makes sense, because Rachel is the one that came in, and there's she's a second mom figure kind of. But at this point in the house, people don't really think there is an accomplice, as far as I know.
All right. Well, you mentioned Rachel. We'd be remiss not to get into the conflict that the two of you had that carry forward through your eviction speech. Talk to me about your intentions here. It's obvious that you felt that she was, doing certain things to, hopefully lead to you going specifically over Amy. What was your thinking behind deciding to like pseudo confront her about this stuff?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously Amy was their closest ally, and Amy wasn't really in there playing necessarily a game. She was kind of just on Rachel's leash. And so Rachel is essentially has two votes right now, and she's the player that has the most experience in the game. And so I figured that, if I get evicted, there's a decent chance because people view me as a threat, which obviously I can't be that much of a threat because I lost all the challenges that I was in, or competitions, I mean, they're called. Um, but um, but I thought that if I could kind of take the threat and make me look as less of a threat and Rachel is more of a threat because people were already kind of scared of her for whatever reason, then it could help me stay in the game, especially if I come up and I say that I will target her. I thought people would maybe view that as kind of okay, we can use him until he gets rid of Rachel for us because no one else wants to do it, and then we can evict him. And that's kind of what I was going for. And then obviously in that time, I would hopefully make strategies to stay in longer after I get out Rachel. But that was kind of my goal going into it is I want to make her look like a bigger target. Amy's with her. And so if I can play that card, then maybe it'll downplay the target that I am. And then maybe they won't evict me.
You mentioned on feeds that you had asked ChatGPT for some strategic advice before going into Big Brother. What do you think is the biggest advice that was given to you, and how do you think it ended up playing into the fate of your game?
Honestly, ChatGPT, it gave me it didn't give me the best advice. Or, like it gave me pretty generic advice for the most part. I love ChatGPT. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that there is a specific like strategy or anything that it could give me because there isn't one. And so my conversations with ChatGPT led me to come to the conclusion that I just need to go in and be open to any strategy. I'm not going to come in. I'm going to kind of go with the flow and come up with the strategies while I'm in the house. But it did give me just very like generic tips of what to do in this situation, like and alliances and things like that in general. But honestly, it was nothing like I expected going to the house. Talking game, doing all this stuff was nothing like I expected. But I feel like I kind of caught onto it pretty fast, maybe a little bit too late, which was maybe my downfall. But I do think I caught on pretty fast, and I kind of understood. And I honestly like forgot half of the stuff that ChatGPT told me. But that's all.
So you had mentioned that had you stayed and had you won HOH, you were going to nominate three women, and you had mentioned that, you felt like one of the major reasons you had gone is because you were a guy. Talk to me a bit about that thinking, and how do you look back on it now that, you're 12 esque hours removed from the house?
Yeah, honestly, I know I mentioned that at one point, but honestly, I actually think I would have probably put up Rachel and probably Jimmy as well, and then one of the girls that was working with Rachel closely. That was what I decided by the end of it, just because I knew Jimmy was kind of hedging his bets. He was playing both sides. He was telling me he was going to keep me in. I knew he was lying, but I didn't want to call him out just in the off chance that he was going to keep me in. I don't want to screw that up, and so that was actually my plan. Like I kind of mentioned a couple different plans if I won HOH. Obviously, I didn't get to, but that was kind of my plan going into it. Is obviously Rachel's my clear enemy. I want to take shots at the people that are closest to her and her if I win HOH, and it makes it power in my hands where I know I can get out one of her allies at least that week.
Now, look, I would be remiss if I did not mention that a few nights ago, we heard you on the feeds while playing chess with Keanu say the R word, which a lot of fans very understandably took a lot of umbrage with. Now that you're out of the house, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak on that, if you'd like.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I apologize. It was not my intention to offend anybody. I know those were offensive and words that nobody should say. I tried to correct myself as soon as I could and move on from it. And hopefully, people don't look at me as less or a bad person because of the things that I said. But I do apologize to anyone affected or offended by that.
Thank you for that. Well, let's finish on a fun note here, Zay. We're going to play a game with you. It's a little bit
Well,
of a word association. So I'm going to give you the name of one of the people left in the house, and you're going to give me the first word or few words that come to mind for that person.
just like any word or
And any word you like, first thing that comes to your mind.
okay, let's do it.
Well, let's start with Adrian.
Adrian, I would say trustworthy. If he gives me my word, I trust Adrian that he will go through with it.
Amy.
Amy, I would say very loving. I don't think she's there playing a very strategic game, but she's like a very nice, wholesome person.
Ashley.
Ashley, I think I would say Ashley's calculated. She's playing strategic game, and I think she knows when to make moves and when not to make moves.
Ava.
Ava, I think Ava is very unique. She's super funny, and she has a very like awesome like personality, very different than mine. But like it was super cool to like hang out with her, get to chat with her. But she is very unique.
You talked to him a bit ago, but how about Jimmy?
Jimmy, I think he's very witty. He's very quick and witty, and I think he's a great guy. And extremely smart, knows the game very well.
Catherine.
Catherine, I think Catherine is she's kind of laying low a little bit, and she's playing a smart game. She's not making herself a target, and she's has good relationships with everyone in the house.
Kelly.
Kelly, I think Kelly is very smart, but I think she's kind of put herself a little bit on the outs, and kind of played a little bit too hard too early, and so I do think she will go decently soon.
How about Keanu?
Keanu's just fun is my word for him. Like he's a fun guy. Like I love hanging out with him. He's one of my boys, and he's big too. He's super big and big as hell. There we go.
Lauren.
Lauren, I would say more reserved. I think she's a little bit scared to make decisions. She waited until right before eviction to make her decision of who she was going to keep in the house, which could play to a con for her. But I think that if she can end up choosing a side and not be wishy-washy every week, then she can make a good run in this game.
How about Mickey?
Mickey, hilarious. Mickey's super funny. She's quick with jokes, and I think she's like just a super hilarious and fun person.
Morgan.
I would say smart. People don't realize she's very calculated. When I was playing chess with her, she barely knew like the strategies, but I could see her putting it together really easily.
All right. I'm sure you got some words to describe Rachel.
Rachel, I mean, honestly, I like as a person, like Rachel's a great person. She's a great wife, great mom. I think that I mean, obviously, like we didn't have the best relationship. I do think that she thinks very highly of herself, and she was talking about herself a lot. Not obviously my favorite person in the house, but I do think that she's a great person at heart, and she has good intentions.
Riley.
Riley is hilarious, and he's country boy at heart, and I love that guy to death, and I think he's like the funniest guy ever.
How about Vince?
Calculated. He's playing slow. He is playing calculated. I think he knows when to make moves and when not to make moves. I think he knows who he can trust and who he can't trust.
Will.
Will, I think he's a little bit easily convincible. Like he was jumping back and forth, even though we had an alliance, he was jumping back and forth just because he didn't want to be on the wrong side of the boat. I think it could come back to bite him. But at the same time, he could be used as a number until, towards the end. But he's a great guy. He loves his family a lot, and he's the most wholesome dude.
Last but certainly not least, Zach.
Zach, he's my boy. He's super handsome, jacked. He's smart. He's fun. Like he's just my type of vibe. Like he's like was probably my closest friend in the house, even though I love everybody in there. But I think very highly of Zach in every way, and so I hope he does really well in this, and hopefully that if he's on the block, they don't just look at him as a target and throw him out.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And, everything you brought to the door of the Big Brother house as the door-to-door salesman, for your accountability, your candor, your willingness to start up drama. Obviously, this is not the most ideal outcome, but it seems like you made the most of your week and a half in the house. And we're very grateful for that and taking the chance to talk with me today.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Of course, all the best to you and yours, and have a good one. Thanks so much again,
Thank you.
Zach.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.